Hey there, traders. This is Sam back with another trading and market recap. This is for Friday, the 3rd of October. I'm making this video Monday morning. The market hasn't opened yet. It's almost 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern, but we're going to talk about this day right here and hopefully get this video posted later today. But I had some time before running the numbers and finding levels for today, for Monday. So let's talk about Friday. So here is what the market looked like at the end of the day. We'll come back to this daily chart later and talk about what we're looking at. Here were the levels for Friday morning. You can read through the levels, and they had specific meanings. Like there's a zone at the top. That's the blue lines, the dark blue lines. This lighter blue line at 669.22 was a reference level, kind of an access point. And so if you read through the game plan, I'll skim down to this area here. You'll see that it was basically the gap left over from yesterday. That would have been Thursday. If we used that as our access level, if price would stay above, the bulls would probably have a better chance to fight through the other resistance to go up to the trend line, which is an area which is not on the board, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And if price were to get below and stay below, and by that I mean closing 10-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute candles, maybe an hour or two candle, that's a pretty good sign that the battle has been lost by the bulls and price would go down. So in other words, not a tradable level, 669.22, just a reference level. So here's the notes, and that's what the market looked like, or at least the chart looked like, before the market opened on Friday. And now we're looking at those exact levels as plotted on the chart after the market closed. Again, this is Monday morning, so this is all Friday's activity to the right of the dotted vertical line. That was the close of the previous day. So where were the trades? If we're going to ignore everything before 9:45, before the first 15 minutes, then you're looking for opportunities after that fact. Now, they did bounce here about 9:42, 9:43 or so, and they're climbing back up. So here's your 15-minute window. They're open. But if you played by the rules, you'd consider this level good because that doesn't count. In other words, they hit it before that first 15-minute window open, but this is where the trade's going to take place per the rules. So going along here at 670.45 or 670.50 if you want to add that 5-cent buffer. Either way, they gave you a base hit from this area as they bounced. Now they're coming up to 671.73. We'll adjust this down to 671.68. So let's take a closer look at this. They came up close within a few pennies, pulled away almost enough for a base hit within 10 cents. Base hit is down here somewhere. So that is a near miss. You're welcome to try the level if you want, but that's generally a sign that there's a destination higher up and you could be out of the money for a while when they react prematurely like this. So that is a near miss. By the rules, you're not going to trust that level. So in other words, you're not going to trigger a trade at 671.68. So they're above it for a while. And the time that they got out of this level, so remember 671.68 was 73 officially. So we're going to add 5 cents to this. And we're going to say, okay, can they stay above this level for at least 20 minutes? And if they do, can we get a bounce on the other side? 10:37, 10:38, they left it. They come back at 11:03. So there's 20 minutes. If you want to go long at 671.73-ish, I've just added the 5-cent buffer. Give it some time. Yeah, you're out of the money for a while, but they end up bouncing. Then you got your base hit when they bounced up here. So that's trade number 2. That's the recycle of this level here. This level is now out of consideration for the rest of the trading day. We've already traded this level here at 670.50 on the long side, so it could be open for a trade on the short side later, but they bounced again. Not going to do anything. This is just the market's way of telling you these levels are important, but if you're going to play by the rules, the first hit is the best hit, so you've already traded this. Attempting them again on the same side just increases your risk. They came down to 669.22. If you recall, the game plan said we're just going to see what price can do at this level. We're not going to trade it. So officially, no trade at 669, but you're willing to buy down here at 668.04. I actually had some interim levels here. I did buy on the way down, but we'll look at that in a minute. Well, 668.04 would have been 668.09. There's your 5-cent buffer. And unfortunately, they came up short and bounced. Clearly, this was support, but you would not have had the trade triggered because they just missed the level. Once again, we're ignoring 669.22. Now they're up to 670.45. That was the official level. So you want to go short at 670.40? Why not? There's been enough time. They finally got underneath this level at 13:42 at 1:42 p.m. They're coming back up to hit it almost an hour later. So going short at 670.40 gave you your third base hit for the day, and then they kind of messed around for the rest of the day. So 3 official base hits if you were playing by the rules. So here is my trading activity for Friday. So I didn't really do anything until after maybe 11 a.m. or so. And I remember not being too confident, but I thought maybe I could just buy one contract, kind of buying at the highs. Thought they were going to break out of the high they made for the morning. And let's see where that is. 11 o'clock, 11:30. It's later than I thought. Here we go. Almost noon. So I'm long here, expecting they're going to break out of this area. Realized my mistake. Saw some other signals and just jumped out with a couple ticks or so. So didn't lose any money. Pretty much a wash. Just jumped out and just held tight until they came down into this reference level here, the 669.22, the access level. And I bought at that level. But I was willing to buy lower, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm long 4 at this point. I bought 2 and then bought 2 lower down, and I'm willing to buy more if they went lower. There you go. You can see a limit order on the chart to buy 2 more contracts would have been long 6, but as it turned out, my 4 contract position gave me some points, trailed up the remainder of that, then went short up here for my recycle trade at 670.40, and same thing, just took 1 contract off and trailed the remaining contract, and it pulled it down a little farther. So all those trades, 2 or 3, just kind of random trades here, end up being pretty good. I don't have my chart in front of me here. We'll pull it up in a minute, or the tracking log, but it was $1,600 something, so like the equivalent of maybe 9 points with 4 contracts, something like that. We'll look at it in a minute. Anyway, just let this thing go until the end of the trading day. So 4 o'clock, there we go. The logs look like this. Playing by the rules log. Here's your 12 points. You can read the notes to see how we got there. Here are the levels that were hit. 669.22 again, not traded per game plan, and 12 points is this many dollars before commissions based on number of ES contracts. And on my trades, you can read through the notes, quite a bit of information, but the net points was the equivalent of 8.4 points on 4 contracts. There we go. So 1680 before commissions. Back to the daily chart. So Friday left us with this kind of mostly nondescript looking little candle here. Friday's also the end of the week, so here's the week. So remember we talked about this doji candle, which may not have a whole lot of significance, but timing is kind of important. It's a pretty clear sign of indecision, at least at the time, and the volume was above the average. So I'm kind of looking at that kind of information. But the high of last week's doji candle was 667.34. So we wanted to see Friday's close, so the weekly close, above that to see if the bulls could stay in control, and they did. So the close was 669.24. So they closed above the high of the previous week. That's probably a decent sign for the bulls. You can see in the big picture, everything is still pretty bullish. If we go to a monthly chart, they've been riding this 20-period moving average, and definitely true on the daily chart. I've been talking about this trend line here. I'm just going to kind of give you an idea where it's at. So they fell. This is an important area here back whenever this was, March of this year. And you can make the case of any of these pivot points. It's an important area here where this area that was spiked several times and they could not get above it. And that was definitely the case on Friday. So here, let's go to an hourly chart. There we go. So this is what this trend line is looking like. Now you can make the case that there are some resistance areas underneath this. They're making higher highs, but they seem to be getting farther away from this trend line for whatever that's worth. Currently, since this is Monday morning, let's see where they're at. 671.77. I can go ahead and put, there we go. This is the pre-market. So they're climbing back up, trying to at least. It's 8:04 a.m. So we have an hour and a half till the market opens. So they can open anywhere. But just want to point out where that trend line is. That's kind of a rough area. There's other ways to draw these trend lines based on pivot highs. So they come up today or later this week, which is likely, and break the former highs, which is over here, 670, 672.50 something. Then there could be some interim resistance before they hit this, what I would consider kind of the major trend line. So there is some information I'm going to include in the game plan for today. I'm not going to mention it right now. This is just a recap for Friday. Since we have the benefit of the pre-market, we can kind of see what they're doing now. We can make the case that things are definitely still bullish. They're bullish until they're not, basically. So that's what I have for Friday, October the 3rd. Hopefully this video will get posted later today. And then tonight's video will be today's recap, Monday the 6th. Thanks for watching. I appreciate the support. I hope you found this helpful. Have a great rest of your day.